Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of Idle Chatter. I'm Dragon. And on this episode, I was kind of going back and forth on what I want to talk about. There's a few different topics that I want to kind of just, speak my piece on. But the one that kind of kept coming to mind really was this whole notion of fanboyism or being a fanboy or fangirl. And kind of how that word is, kind of thrown around a lot. And for one of the questions I've gotten from people too, just in kind of my circle of peers, is a fanboy, and when I say fanboy, I'm referring to, guys, gals, anyone and everyone. I'm just using the general term, but obviously, if you're a girl, yeah, you'd be a fangirl. But I'm just using the general used term as fanboy, but it applies to all, I know, regardless of the plumbing. And kind of one of the things people would ask me, because obviously they know I'm into like geek culture, they know I'm a part of fandoms, like also they know I'm a big Godzilla fan, so that's kind of my thing. One of the questions you asked me, okay, is there a difference between a fan and a fanboy? And I think for a lot of people there isn't. It's just kind of a general term people use. If you really love something, you're a fanboy. But a lot of times it's used almost in a negative light. When someone is being very kind of elitist about a particular fandom, they're kind of referred to as a fanboy, and usually the connotation is always negative. It's like, oh god, here comes the fanboy, oh, here's this fandom's fanboys. It's kind of almost used in a sarcastic way whenever someone's being not intelligent and people go, well, good job, Einstein, they, even though Einstein was a genius, they use the term in a derogatory fashion to be ironic, because you're clearly not Einstein, you're being very dumb. So when you see someone who's being very elitist and almost possessive of the fandom to a degree which is just irritating to everybody else, people kind of tend to throw around the word fanboy. And basically, what I've noticed with this term is, okay, so I do feel there is a difference between being a fan and a fanboy. And my reasonings for that is that I believe it is how one represents the fandom. Now, for this, I'm probably going to use the Godzilla fandom a lot because that's my fandom, but it is interchangeable. Like, you could be a Marvel fan, DC fan, Doctor Who fan, Star Trek fan, Star Wars fan, whatever. But I'm just going to kind of pull more from my experience, just because it's my experience and it's kind of what I can relate to. But it really applies to any fandom. So regardless of what fandom you're a part of, a lot of this is probably going to sound familiar, and you could just swap out the name Godzilla for whatever. So one of the things I noticed with like a fanboy, it is that their relationship with the fandom in question is possessive in nature rather than giving. What I mean by that is, okay, for instance, my goal with a lot, here on Patreon and on our YouTube channel, and just social media in general. If you guys follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you'll see it's a lot of Godzilla related stuff. My goal with the Godzilla fandom is to spread it far and wide. I love it. It means a great deal to me, and I want to introduce as many people as I can to it. Not to the point where I'm trying to force it on people, but hey, let people know, hey, here's this thing that is out there that I think is pretty cool. And maybe if you check it out, you might think so too. And if you don't, hey, that's fine. But maybe you will. Whereas a fanboy is more possessive with it. So for instance, I've come across situations where you'll see online, either like on forums or, the YouTube comment sections where, for instance, there's a lot of trailer reactions going out right now, especially with the new Godzilla trailer, the second Godzilla trailer for Godzilla King of the Monsters. And surprise, surprise, not everyone reacting to the trailers is a Godzilla fan. And the majority of the people who are reacting to this trailer are not Godzilla fans. Most of these people know very little to nothing at all about Godzilla, other than just Godzilla's this big monster thing that knocks over buildings. Okay, so when they're watching the trailer and they're commenting and they're calling King Ghidorah, like, oh, he's like a weird dragon lizard thing, or Mothra, what is she, like a bug, and people are just saying stuff like that, where someone like me, I could tell you the entire backstory about King Ghidorah, what he is, all the various incarnations, all the various iterations, all the various backstory, Mothra, what she represents, all the variations, all the iterations. I know everything and anything to know about these monsters because it's my thing and I enjoy it, and I took the time growing up to learn as much as I could about it. But in doing so, I never once believed that everybody on the planet was doing the same thing. I recognize that there are other people out there who are just as knowledgeable as me, and more so. But I also recognize that other people around me were also into different things, and that for them, maybe everything there is to know about Mothra wasn't, that important of a thing for them. That maybe that wasn't really on the list of things to do today. Hey, learn about, everything you can about the Mothra fairies. And I understood that. I was like, hey, as long as I'm able to enjoy it, and as long as nobody's getting in my face and making fun of me for it or trying to stop me from enjoying it, I really don't care. I mean, the more the merrier. But ultimately, if the person next to me doesn't give a shit about Godzilla, hey, they're lost. That's the way I look at it. But I'm not going to sit there and, tell them that they're wrong because the thing that I love isn't the thing they love. Because then on the flip side, they could turn around and say, what do you mean Marvel isn't the most important thing to you? Well, I'm just not really into American comics. Well, you should be, because they are so amazing, and I can't imagine what my life would be like without them. So clearly, because you don't have it in your life, there's something lacking in your life. And, that would make me feel like, the fuck are you talking about? And rightfully so. So getting to my point is, when I would look at sometimes, and I try to stay away from comment section. I mean, with you guys, I try to, weigh in sometimes, and you guys usually say a lot of nice things, you have a lot of comment, and we encourage you guys always at the end of our videos to comment, give us your thoughts, your feelings, and that's great, we love that. But the nature of the internet is, every so often now we'll get that comment, where it's someone who just, basically descends into a cliche and writes a negative, mean thing on the internet, which I'm just kind of like, there's plenty of videos out there where I watch them and I'm like, wow, this is dumb, this is stupid, I disagree with all of it, and I literally don't even take the time to click the not like thumbs down thing, because I just don't even care enough. But some people do, and I'll look at watch these reaction videos, and with the people who don't know a lot about Godzilla and everything that goes along with it, and there'll be people in the comment section who are just making fun of them or just criticizing them, or basically acting like, how dare you not know everything there is to know about Godzilla? And my first thought is, well, maybe because today, before this video, they never gave a shit about Godzilla. Maybe, just maybe, Godzilla is not the center of their universe. And maybe, just maybe, after this reaction video is done, they might not think about Godzilla again until they see another trailer or a TV spot, or they just go see the damn movie. Because for them, maybe Godzilla is not the most important thing in the world to them. And this concept is essentially beyond a fanboy. A fan will understand that, hey, I like something, it's important to me, I enjoy it. And as long as I can continue to enjoy it, that's good enough for me. If somebody else wants to know about it, I'll tell them about it. Maybe I'll present them with something so they can see it, and that's fine. And they can take it or leave it. If it's not for them, then it's not for them. Now, if they start saying, oh, it's stupid, it's garbage, you could be like, hey, fuck you, But as long as they're not being antagonistic about it, they're just saying, yeah, it's not really my thing. It's like, cool, whatever. It's my thing, and it makes me happy, and my enjoyment of the thing is not predicated upon someone else's. So if you come across someone else who likes it too, great, kindred spirit, that's always fun. But if you don't, it doesn't diminish your love for it. That is a fan. A fanboy is someone who is having that conversation, talking about Godzilla, and talking about the difference in the various cuts between the American version of King Kong versus Godzilla versus the Japanese version, and talking about how they spliced in music from the Universal monster movies when Universal distributed, and they're having that conversation, and then the non-fan walks up and and says, oh yeah, Godzilla versus King Kong, or King Kong versus Godzilla, I heard that there was two versions of the ending, an American version where King Kong wins, and a Japanese version where Godzilla wins. Now, growing up, this is what I heard too, and I'm sure this might be something you'll hear like on the the truth of the matter is, there is no alternate version. Both versions of the film have the same ending, and a lot of Godzilla fans know that. But it's not common knowledge, or more casual fans, or even just people who are just not in, but they've always heard that there's two endings. Well, growing up, I owned the American version on VHS, and during my last trip to Tokyo, I bought the Japanese Blu-ray, because that's the only way to legally get the Japanese cut of the film, and same ending. Okay, so the fans would be like, oh, actually, believe it or not, it's actually the same ending. But yeah, it's kind of been kind of an urban legend that's been around for years, and really it wasn't until the advent of digital, media and the internet that really people started finding out that no, that actually wasn't true. And they'd be like, oh, wow, that's interesting. I always thought it was like, yeah, no, we all thought that too once. It's weird, that, you'd have this little back and forth, and they would walk away from the conversation having learned something, which is always great. As, kind of, the caretakers of a fandom, that's what you want to do. You want to impart knowledge upon, people who maybe are misinformed or just don't know as much but are sharing curiosity. The fanboy would look at them and kind of and proceed to kind of just put them down and make them feel stupid for not knowing that, because how dare they not know that? How dare they not know that crucial, just so important piece of information, that life-defining nugget of truth? How dare they not know that? And will proceed then to make that other person feel stupid, or attempt to make them feel stupid, because in their eyes, this person is dumb for not knowing that there's only one ending to, a movie in 1962 where a giant ape fought a giant dinosaur. The person did not know that, and apparently that is an egregious sin. So you'll see in these comments with people, where they're putting people down for not knowing things. And not always, sometimes they'll be very polite and they'll educate. Like, oh, actually, believe it or not, that's what that is, or that's what that represents. And those are the fans coming in. They're educating. And weirdly enough, I mean, I'm not a religious man by any stretch, but fans are more like a religious person. Excuse me, refresher. Whereas if you've ever had someone, I mean, maybe you're religious, I don't know. But if you're not super religious or not religious at all, and you had a friend or you come across somebody who is, and they want to, talk to you about, God, like, have you heard the good news? That Jesus he's coming back. And they don't, and when you tell them, like, oh, I don't know anything, I've never been to church, I've never, I've never read the Bible. I'm just using Christianity as an example. I'm not picking on Christianity. I'm just, again, speaking from experience here. And I've never been to church. I've never read the Bible. I'm not familiar with it. Okay, well, what is the first thing they want to do? Do they go, you've never been to church? What the fuck's wrong with you? What do you mean you've never read the Bible? Jesus, where have you... Not Jesus. Like, where the hell have you been? Where the hell have you been? You can tell I'm not a religious person, right? I just... using that example, I just basically made the most, religiously offensive religious person. But yet my point is they don't put you down there for oh, well, here, I've got this brochure, or we're having, a meeting at our church, I would love to sit down and talk to you about it sometime. They want to sign you up. They want to bring you into the fold. They're not making you feel less than because you don't know. They are accepting that there are people out there who are not of their faith, and maybe we're not given the same opportunity to discover their faith like they were, and therefore, but they want you to come in. So if they start making you feel stupid, or they start making you feel like you're bad for not knowing that, well, you're not going to want to sign. You're not going to want to listen to anything they have to say, even if maybe what they have to say might be of interest to you. You're not even going to get that far, because you're just going to see some asshole making you feel like shit, and you're just going to be like, well, fuck you too. Bye. Go sign up to another religion or whatever. You're not going to want to sign up, and they know that, because in that moment they are the face of their religion. Their religion, is basically summed up in them in that moment. So how you perceive them in that moment is how you will perceive that religion. So they're walking on eggshells. They're trying very hard to coerce you, but not try to force you or grab you by the arm and pull you in. They want to be gentle. They want to guide you in. So they want to show you the better parts of it. And that's what a fan does. That's what a fandom is. It's like, okay, you don't know everything there is to know about Godzilla. You don't even know much about Godzilla. What's that? You think the last Godzilla movie was the 98 one with Matthew Broderick? Granted, that one's that's a hard one for us to hold back to, because we want to be like, no, they made the entire Millennium series after it. But we have to bite our tongue so bad. But okay, we hear that, and a fan's like, oh, well, actually, believe it or not, the 98 film was kind of an offshoot American production that had really no relation to any of the Japanese production, which, by the way, is created by a Japanese company called Toho. And after the 98 film, they proceeded to produce more films in their native country, which are coincidentally now available here if you would want to check them out. There's some really good ones. Godzilla 2000, GMK are kind of my standouts. But there's also good other ones that you might like more. I mean, there's Godzilla vs. Megaguirus that you might enjoy, Final Wars. There's a lot of different ones that came after. And in addition to a new American film in 2014, Japan also did another Japanese production in 2016 called Shin Godzilla, or Godzilla Resurgence, depending on what part of the world it is. And you can just basically say, yeah, you have a conversation. So you're not making, you're educating them. You're kind of basically telling them that their information was wrong without making them feel wrong. You're not making them feel like you're saying, oh, actually, you know, basically say like, well, you didn't know that because you didn't come across the necessary information that would tell you that. You didn't move in that circle, so why would you know that? So you don't make them feel stupid for not knowing that. And again, this is the same thing with you're into Star Wars or, you know, Doctor Who or, you know, Marvel, DC, Image Comics, you know, whatever, you know, Korn, Deftones, whatever, you know, death metal, black metal, whatever. You know, I mean, you don't make people feel dumb. You educate them. You basically, and then even then after that, they might be like, okay, cool, and they might be like, well, that might be the extent that they have no interest in, and that's fine too. Hey, you're not gonna win them all, but you might, you know. You might kind of open the door for somebody who also might have been fearing kind of a backlash, might have been fearing coming across the fanboy and opening their mouth and saying something that, to their knowledge, was correct, only to find out that it wasn't because that person just proceeds to just tear into them and just make him feel like they're this big about not knowing about something that's made up to begin with. So, you know, and you can see why there's a lot of that. So basically, a fanboy does not care about spreading the gospel, if we want to keep using kind of religious terminology here. Although I start to make a gross wet sound when I drink that. I've just been craving ginger beer today. Now, the other distinction between a fan and a fanboy is that we were kind of touched upon them being possessive about it, and one of the ways that that is manifested basically kind of how they react to people who are not familiar with it. The other is not necessarily wanting what is best for their fandom, but wanting it to be what it was for them when they discover it, just because it makes them happy, regardless of what it does to the fandom as a whole. And this is a great one for the Godzilla fandom, because this is probably one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to Godzilla fandom. Now, a fan realizes that Godzilla, while being created and initially marketed by Toho, is ultimately Godzilla is the character. It's Godzilla, this big, giant, anthropomorphic, prehistoric, radioactive beast. Okay? That is Godzilla. He has certain hallmarks, both visual, personality-wise, and just kind of in terms of representation, you know, what he does. Okay, that's Godzilla. Now, a fan, while recognizing that it's Toho's, you know, creation, that we wouldn't have Godzilla if it wasn't for Toho, also realizes that, let's say, Toho goes bankrupt. Knock on wood. Hope that never happens, by the way. I hope they are around long after I'm, you know, dust in the wind. But let's say they go bankrupt. And all their properties, that's it. You know, everything goes belly up. And a Norwegian company, a Norwegian film studio, you know, acquires the rights to Godzilla. And by and large, his pantheon of kaiju. And then this Norwegian studio makes a Godzilla movie. He looks like Godzilla. He acts like Godzilla. He is Godzilla. Okay. Now, a fan would be like, well, it's weird that it's not Toho anymore, but hey, at least we still get Godzilla movies, right? A fanboy would say, that's not Godzilla, because Toho didn't make it. Even though he acts like Godzilla, he behaves like Godzilla, he sounds like Godzilla, he does what Godzilla does, he's called Godzilla, he's Godzilla, but because a different studio emblem shows up before, you know, the name of the movie, something that's not Godzilla. And this is something we ran into with the 2014 Godzilla. And by and large, now we're probably still getting that with Godzilla King of the Monsters coming out, is that, oh, this isn't Godzilla because it's not Toho making it. Even though, by the way, Toho is gets an executive production credit on the film. They have to approve everything about it. So they are involved with the production of the film, and they have to greenlight it, and they have to give it their blessing. But because it's not Toho proper making it, it's not Godzilla, even though he looks like Godzilla, he acts like Godzilla, he's called Godzilla, he sounds like Godzilla, and he does everything Godzilla does. Fanboys say that's not a real Godzilla movie because this logo isn't in the front. And I'm just like, well, it is a Godzilla movie because Godzilla's in the movie. Now, you can make the argument that you don't think another studio besides Toho should make a Godzilla movie, which I'm just like, hey, as long as the movie's made well, I really don't care. I mean, Toho makes them great, that's fine, but if Toho disappeared, I wouldn't want that to be the end of the Godzilla franchise, because, like, no, I like Godzilla. I want Godzilla to go on forever and ever and ever. Whether it's Toho making it or not, I just want more Godzilla. I want what's best for Godzilla. But the fanboy would say, well, it's not a real Godzilla movie. So here's a movie that, by and large, looks amazing. The new trailer that's out for Godzilla King of the Monsters, you see King Ghidorah, you see Mothra, you see Rodan, and they all look great. It literally looks like these classic kaiju, just in a modern film. And it's amazing because it is so proper and it is so true to their origins, to the origin of these characters, that it literally is these characters just if they were done today. It's not an interpretation. It's not like based off. No, it's literally those characters. And yet there are going to be some people who are going to deny themselves that they're going to see the same thing in the fan, and they're not going to be able to ignore that this looks like an amazing Godzilla movie, but they will never admit that. They will never acknowledge that because it doesn't have that logo. So they're going to go out of their way, on May 31st to deny themselves a movie-going experience that they know, regardless of what they say, that they know they would enjoy. And they will do so out of this place of misplaced pride for something that A, they don't own, first of all, and B, that is made up. Now, I have my qualms with the 98 Godzilla films, but I've always said my reasoning for not liking that film at all has nothing to do with the fact that it was an American production, or that the director was a German guy. It was the fact that it didn't look like Godzilla, it kind of sounded like Godzilla, it didn't act like Godzilla, it didn't behave like Godzilla, it didn't represent anything that Godzilla it does. It wasn't a Godzilla movie, even though because Godzilla wasn't in the movie. If that had been what 2014 was, I would have no problem with 98. So that was my only issue with 98, that it just did not feel like Godzilla. It had nothing to do with the fact that it was a American production. But that's the difference. So a fanboy would rather watch the Godzilla franchise die than see it live on under the mantle of someone else. Again, Toho's still making them. But the reality is, in 2004 with Final Wars, the reason why they put Godzilla to bed for a while, till 2014, when the Legendary film came out, was because these films were not making money. Even in Japan, interest had been lost. The average young film girl didn't give a damn about watching people in suits knock around miniature cities. I mean, I'll never get tired of watching that, but most Japanese audiences did. And Godzilla became a thing of nostalgia across the pond. And the irony is, up until really recently, Godzilla was more popular, for instance, in America than he was in Japan. To a lot of Japanese, he was kind of this retro, passe thing, whereas to a lot of Westerners, Godzilla was this icon of cinema. And it wasn't until 2014 that reinvigorated this interest in Godzilla. And the reason why it was done so, because young audiences were seeing Godzilla now represented in a way that they were used to seeing. These are kids who grew up watching Marvel movies now. They were watching Iron Man and Thor. They were watching those kinds of movies. So to them, that was a big budget movie. A guy in a suit wasn't. It doesn't matter that it was a Japanese production. It doesn't matter that he was a Japanese icon. It doesn't matter that he was part of Japanese film history. They didn't care. For them, movies were big budget CGI special effects extravaganza. So what did they do? Japan gave the reins over to an American studio, and they were still very much involved. They had to approve everything, but they allowed this studio, okay, let's let them do Godzilla proper, but let's still let them do it their way. And then we saw a traditional Godzilla, both in look and behavior, but in like glorious, beautifully rendered CGI. And it basically kind of brought these two worlds together, brought this classic character from yesteryear into modern filmmaking. And for a lot of Japanese audiences, that was really their first introduction to this character proper. And they're like, oh wow, Godzilla. yeah, Godzilla's cool, I guess. Yeah, that is interesting. And they had this extra bit of pride. It's like, hey, he comes from here. He's ours. And then, a couple years later, they did Shin Godzilla over there, which, broke all these records, swept the Japanese box, Academy Awards, and became this big thing. And now, surprise, surprise, Godzilla is this huge global, marketable phenomenon again. Bigger than he's ever been globally, because now he's no longer just a niche market. He is becoming mainstream all over the world, not just in Japan, and that is because of the 2014 American-produced film. And you saw fanboys who denounced that film, who consider it non-legit, even though the only reason why they're even talking about Godzilla today, the only reason why they got Shin Godzilla, everyone says, oh, Shin was the true Godzilla. That was the true return to form. That was the real comeback for Godzilla. Okay. Would not have had that film if it wasn't for 2014. The reason why Toho even made Shin was because they saw that Godzilla, once again, was a marketable property. Because at the end of the day, yes, they love Godzilla. Yes, Godzilla means a lot to them. But at the end of the day, if Godzilla's not making them money, they don't love him as much. They've retired him, already, 1975 after Terror of Mechagodzilla. Film underperformed at the box office. Okay, people don't care about Godzilla anymore. Retire him. Brought him back in 1984. Jump-started him again. Retired him in 95. They're hoping that the 98 film would become this global Godzilla phenomenon. The film tanked, wasn't very good. They kick-started the franchise up again in 99 with Godzilla 2000. And again, after a while, it started just running into the ground again. People lost interest. And by the time we got to Godzilla Final Wars, the film flopped at the box office, and that was it again. Toad's all right. We love Godzilla, but we also love Godzilla more when he's making us money. When he's not making us money, yeah, he's just a cool, feather in our cap. And then American studio comes along saying, hey, we want to make a Godzilla film. Toho was like, well, we don't really know if Godzilla is a marketable thing. Well, tell you what, you license us the character, we'll assume all the risk. And by all the risk, we mean all the cost. We'll pay for the production, we'll do everything. So if the movie tanks, it's not your money. Okay, they do that. Guess what happens? Oh, by the way, Toho did get a bit of a cut. They were able to distribute the film in Japan, so they did make some money off the licensing of the character and, ticket sales in Japanese theaters. Okay, but ultimately it was either Legendary was going to be the one who really succeeded or really failed here. Okay, the movie did good. Money. Suddenly like, oh, wait a minute, suddenly Godzilla's cool again. So what does Toho do? We'll make our own. And now Toho has announced their own Godzilla cinematic universe in 2021, and there is talk of potentially the MonsterVerse, which is the legendary Godzilla cinematic universe, continuing after Godzilla vs. Kong in 2020. All of which is happening because of that American film from 2014 that fanboys denounce as a real Godzilla movie, even though it is that movie that we have this global Godzilla phenomenon today. And if it wasn't for that film, Godzilla would be dead and gone. It really would be. And I know people say, well, he's come out of retirement before. Yes, but if the filmmaking market has changed. Everything about film has changed. So if Godzilla did not come back and with being represented in kind of modern visual style, audiences as a whole would have rejected it. I mean, we would have loved it. Fanboys and fans would have loved it. I'll still watch a Godzilla movie to this day with a guy in a suit. I don't care. But the average viewing public wouldn't like that. So a fan realizes, like, yeah, we love the tokusatsu effects. Yes, we love the suits. But if we want Godzilla to continue, if we want him to live on, he's got to change. We have to enter a modern filmmaking setting. We have to make Godzilla movies now the way all spectacle films are made now. That's just the way it is, and it's that or no more Godzilla. And a fan recognizes that because ultimately, it's what's best for the character, and it is the reason why when I have kids, I'll be able to sit them down and watch a Godzilla movie, and it won't be just one of the older ones, which yes, I'll make sure they watch all the older ones too. But we'll be able to go to the movie theater and watch a brand new one because they'll still be making them because the franchise will have changed with the times. And of course, naturally, when Toho made Shin Godzilla, everyone was saying it's not a Godzilla movie unless it's Toho and a man in a suit. Well, everyone thought it was a man in a suit. Turns out it was just really good CGI. And then suddenly it was, well, it's not Godzilla unless it's Toho. And I was always like, wait a minute. There was one more stipulation. No, it's got to be Toho. Yeah, I know. You said, remember Toho. But wasn't there one more thing you were saying it had to be done for it to be a real Godzilla movie? Suddenly the fact that it was CGI was no longer an issue to the fanboys. Why? Because it was Toho doing it. Godzilla has to look like Godzilla. He can't deviate from any way he looks. So the legendary film, he looks very big, bulky. He breathes blue atomic breath. His spines light up blue when he does. He fights. He saves the day. Very traditional Godzilla. Okay. Toho. Godzilla is no longer, 54 is no longer candy. Even the legendary film, harking back to 54 to some degree. His atomic breath is purple now. His bottom jaw opens up and hinges like a snake. He's got a mouth at the end of his tail that can shoot out a purple atomic breath. 2, he can shoot lasers out of his back. His skin looks all folded. I had zero problem with that. But the visual depiction of this Godzilla was very different. I know a lot of people are saying that Hideaki Anno based that Godzilla off the original. And I'm like, yes, he more based it off the original maquette. But took that original look and pushed it in a more terrifying direction. Went very far with it. It wasn't just the original Godzilla from 54 done in CGI. No, you look at this Godzilla and you line up all the Godzillas in a row over the years and you ask somebody who's never seen a Godzilla movie to kind of point out 3 that really stand out as very different, and I guarantee you Shin will be popped out. He might have been based off the original maquette for 54, but believe me, they made a lot of tweaks and he looks distinctly very different. And if Shin had appeared in 2014, all the fanboys would have been calling foul. A Godzilla that shoots purple atomic breath in a thin beam, a Godzilla that shoots lasers out of his back, a Godzilla that has a mouth on his tail that shoots a mini atomic breath beam, people would be crying foul. But because Toho did it, it's okay. Now, fans are cool either way. Fans are like, hey, we get a really kind of classic, mid-Showa era Godzilla with legendary, the bruiser, the battler, the Rocky Balboa of Godzillas. And Toho gave us this dark, cryptic film that was very much in the tradition of the original Ishido Honda 1954 Gojira. We got both versions. And fans loved both because it's double the Godzilla, and it's whatever Godzilla you're in the mood for, we got a new movie for you. If you want classic brawler Godzilla, we got you covered. You want more back to the roots horror-based Godzilla, we got you covered. Fanboys purposely ignored 1 because they felt they had to, even though Toho doesn't feel they have to. Toho loves the legendary film because the legendary films are making them money. And to them, it's just more Godzilla, and it's more people discovering Godzilla, and they know the legendary Godzilla is the reason why a lot of people to this day know about Godzilla. So Toho has zero problems with it. So, and again, and if it wasn't that, if Toho hadn't embraced this new age of Godzilla and the new ways of making these movies, Godzilla would be gone. He would have faded away. He would have been dead. That would have been it. No more Godzilla. So fans are, incredibly thankful that Toho allowed Godzilla to come into a modern setting. That Godzilla was, they allowed someone to make a Godzilla movie in the way that films like this are made nowadays, but still honored the character, and in doing so, revived the franchise, revived a lot of people's interest in the character, and introduced a lot of new people to this character. Fanboys would have been happier to let it die, because it's not the way they experience Godzilla. Because that time when they were 10 years old and they were watching TV and a Godzilla movie that came on cable, and they sat in front of the cable box or the TV and they watched Godzilla and had this great experience with it, and it made them feel a certain way that, unless they see Godzilla presented in that way, they don't get that warm, fuzzy feeling on the inside. And they realize the world doesn't care about their feeling. The world does not care about the fanboy. It doesn't matter to you. Because, for instance, me, okay, I wasn't there with you when you were 10 years old and you saw Godzilla for the first time on cable that afternoon. I wasn't there for that. So your feeling, the thing that you are determining how Godzilla should be represented forevermore, literally means nothing to me because I don't have that feeling. Just the same way that, my favorite film basically of all time, and definitely my favorite Godzilla film is, the 1984 Godzilla, the Return of Godzilla. Because I remember that was my introduction to Godzilla. I remember how I felt when I was watching it as a kid. I was like 3 years old the first time I saw it, and I was in Merced, California. It just moved to America, and there it was. And I was like, oh, wow, this feeling. Okay, well, to a person whose favorite movie is Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, that whole experience means nothing to them. So who's right? Is my experience more valid than that other person's experience? No. Great. We had a wonderful experience with Godzilla for the first time. And you know what? Every Godzilla fan has their first experience. That's part of discovering a fandom. But you have to understand that that is a personal experience. That is your experience. That experience should not exclude all others and determine the franchise indefinitely. It's like, no. What determines the franchise is what's best for the franchise. And if that means making a movie in a way that no longer, evokes that warm, fuzzy feeling you had, oh well, sucks for you, because for every person who's like, that's not my Godzilla, there's going to be about 100 million other people who think it's cool. And it's a numbers game, because money talks. If these films don't make money, these films just don't happen. So Godzilla films need to make money if they are to continue. Now, if you're a lot of fanboys would just rather see it die, then they have a whole catalog of Godzilla films that they'll just watch over and over again, then that's good enough. And okay, fine. But as a fan, I want Godzilla to continue. So I want what's best for Godzilla. So even if they never make a Godzilla movie that, never stirs the same level of emotion for me as 84, well, I own 84. I can watch 84 whenever I want. So if I need to feel that specific feeling from Godzilla, okay, pop it in the Blu-ray player, let's go, I'll get it. But ultimately, I know that because of the way these films are being made now, my kids will have new Godzilla movies. My grandkids will have new Godzilla movies. And long after I'm dead and gone, they'll be still making Godzilla movies. And to me, that's what I want. So if you're a Marvel fan, you're a DC fan, whatever your fandom is, ultimately, if you're a fan, you want what's best for it. The Marvel movies, yeah, they make deviations from the comics, I'm sure. I've been told by comic fans, oh yeah, this is different, or they kind of cherry pick. But the point is, it's not direct match, not always anyway. But they don't mind because A, the movies are good, and B, it's because of these movies that everyone and their grandmother knows who these characters are now, whereas before it was only people who read the comics. So now these characters are known and loved by people the world over, outside of just the comic reading community. Fanboys would have been like, nope, that's not like issue number blah 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 from 19 blah blah blah, then it's not my thing. It's like, okay, but it's not yours. Meanwhile, the rest of us are going to be having a great time at the movies while you're staying at home just sulking because it's not the way I would have wanted it. And here's the thing too, if you're a fanboy and you really don't like something's going, get involved with the industry. If you think you can make a better version of a film, start trying to make movies, start trying to direct, start writing screenplays, get involved. If you're not happy with the way something's being done, do it. That's why now the people who are directing these Godzilla movies are Godzilla fans. They liked them, they were inspired by these characters, and they got involved with the industry, and now they get to make Godzilla movies, whereas the fanboy was not. So that is the difference, really, I feel, between fans and fanboy. And I'm not trying to make it sound like I was attacking anyone, but if any of this stuff kind of rang true from you on the fanboy side, you might want to, check yourself. You might want to kind of take a look in the mirror and kind of realize that, am I being way too possessive about something that, again, doesn't belong to you? You're not the copyright holder. It's not yours. When people say it's not my Godzilla, you're right. It's not your Godzilla. No Godzilla is your Godzilla because you don't own him. So it's never been your Godzilla. And in terms of new people coming in and doing different things, you say, okay, it's not a Japanese production. Well, I'll say this. The people currently working at Toho, when we went to Toho earlier in the year, we were there like in February of 2018, I met some of the executives there, one of which looked to be about my age or younger. Okay, my age or younger. I wasn't alive in 1954, so I'm going to go on a limb and say neither was this gentleman. So at some point, this person, like me, discovered Godzilla through pop culture, through seeing it on TV, seeing it in the movie theater, renting it on VHS, whatever. But they didn't create Godzilla, and then they got involved with film production. They got hired at Toho. They worked their way up, and now they're involved with some of the decision-making processes involving Godzilla. but they came into it from the outside. They're not one of the original guys. Those people are gone. So the people who are running Toho now, they're not those same people. So everyone who's making decisions for Godzilla now at Toho are no different than the people at Legendary, in the sense that Godzilla predated them. They're still outsiders who came in and took up the mantle. Their nationality has nothing to do with it. They all saw the movies we saw. It doesn't matter if they were from Japan or the United States or the UK. They all saw Godzilla once upon a time as an outsider. They were introduced to Godzilla as, people non-affiliated with the film industry. And they fell in love with this character. And because you have a director like Gareth Edwards from England, and a director from like Michael Dougherty from, the United States, and a director like Hideki Anno from Japan, 3 men from 3 different parts of the world all fell in love with the same character and wanted to make a movie with that character. Different films, but wanted to be involved with that character. And they were outsiders who came in. So it doesn't matter what nationality you are. It doesn't matter what country you're from. It doesn't matter which company you work for. Ultimately, you're making a Godzilla movie, or a Marvel movie, or a DC movie, or a Doctor Who episode, trying to think of different, because you love it. Because you saw it once upon as an outsider and said, I love that. I love what that makes me feel, and I want to be a part of that. And that's what a fan does. They allow something into their heart, and they allow it to have this positive effect on them, and then they want to give back to it. They want to help it grow. They want to make it so it can do that for somebody else. A fanboy sees it, takes it, and holds it. And it's mine. No one else can have it. This is all mine, and I don't want to hear about anybody else's version. It's this way, it's my way, mine. And that person is essentially an abusive parent. It's those people who swaddle their kids to the point where they just choke them. It's a parent who basically, shakes their baby too much. They're doing it for their own good because you need to stop crying because it's not good to cry and you need to learn how to behave in public, and then they break their neck. Okay, you loved it to death. So being a fan isn't always easy. Sometimes you have to hear some shit that really pisses you off. Like, yeah, the last Godzilla movie was 98, right? No, it wasn't. But I'm not going to make you feel bad for it because then you're just not going to give a shit about Godzilla. Sometimes you have to bite your lips or your tongue. Sometimes you have to take the high road, and sometimes you're going to be frustrated by people who just don't know nearly as much about this thing as you do. But ultimately, your goal is to spread the love and spread the good word. And that trumps all. So you will do what you can to kind of introduce people, educate people, and guide them into their journey in discovering this glorious fandom. Because ultimately, that's what all fans want, is more people in love with it. But yeah, so that's it right there. I mean, that's the difference for me, anyway, between a fan and a fanboy. One wants to propagate the fandom, wants to spread it far and wide, and wants to bring as many people into the fold as possible. The other wants to clutch it selfishly and just hold it so close and so tight until it asphyxiates it and withers and dies in their arms. It's a bit grim, I know, but that's what it is, which is why I don't like fanboys. And again, most people, when they say fanboy, they just use the term interchangeable with fan. But to kind of distinguish between the two different kinds of fans, I like just using fan and fanboy, because fanboy already kind of has a bit of a negative connotation to it. So it's just easier to kind of just slap all the kind of negative qualities of that part of a fandom with that to kind of distinguish. So people say, are you a Godzilla fanboy? And I tell them, nope, I am a Godzilla fan. And as I think as pop culture really pushes itself more and more to the forefront of everyday life, more people are going to start seeing what the difference really is. So to all of you out there who are fans, thank you so much. Regardless of what it is you're a fan of, regardless of what it is you're out there promoting, thank you for doing it. And the people who create these things, thank you too. Because ultimately, fans are the reason why they keep making what they make, and fans are the reason why it stays alive. Because we love it, and we try to get other people to love it. And if you're a fanboy, Check yourself. But anyway, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for checking in with me and listening to me chit chat. Thank you for donating here on Patreon. It means a lot to myself and Ashley, and I'm going to try to see if I can get her on one of these idle chatter episodes soon. She's a little bit more structured than me, so she has trouble just kind of sitting down and just kind of speaking off the cuff like that. She likes to have stuff more structured, but I'm sure I can probably lure her on all the same. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace!